Moin, my name is Henrik Heuer and I'm presenting the paper How Fake News Affect Trust in the Output of a Machine Learning System for News Curation. I'm presenting joint work of my supervisor Andreas Breiter, and we're both at the Institute for Information Management in Bremen, Germany. Machine learning systems increasingly select and prioritize information on social media platforms like Facebook. The Pew Research Center found that half of US adults who use Facebook think they do not understand why certain posts are included in their newsfeed. This paper investigates whether users can distinguish trustworthy from untrustworthy machine learning recommendations and whether untrustworthy news stories like fake news benefit from appearing in a trustworthy context. Laser et al. Operationalized the term fake news as fabricated information that mimics news media content in form but not in organizational process or intent. Research on how fake news affect trust in the output of a machine learning system for news curation is important since such systems are an integral part of social media platforms like Facebook. Algorithmic news curation systems model users' interest to recommend relevant news stories. A widely used example of such a machine learning system is Facebook's newsfeed. Facebook describes the newsfeed as a personalized, ever-changing collection of posts from the friends, family, businesses, public figures, and news sources you've connected to on Facebook. Facebook's newsfeed relies on three signals: who posted it, the type of content, and the interactions with the post. Prior research by Aslani et al. Showed that users can detect algorithmic bias during the regular usage of online hotel rating platforms, and that this affects trust in the platform. Rade et al. Showed that explanations make people more aware of how a system works, but they are less effective in helping people evaluate the correctness of a system's output. We address three research questions. Can users provide trust ratings for news recommendations of a machine learning system? Do users distinguish trustworthy machine learning recommendations from untrustworthy machine learning recommendations? And do users distinguish trustworthy machine learning recommendations from recommendations that include one individual untrustworthy news story? The Oxford Dictionary defines trust as the firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. Trust is seen as an attitude or expectation, an intention or willingness to act, or the result of a behavior. Luhmann defined trust as a way to cope with risk, complexity, and a lack of system understanding. For Luhmann, trust is what allows people to face the complexity of the world. Other definitions cite a positive expectation of behavior and reliability. We conducted an experiment with 82 participants with a STEM focus from a vocational school with a focus on IT. The study was conducted in situ via a web application and had two phases: rating news items and rating machine learning recommendations. Before the experiment, we explained the rating interface that you see on the right, provided Mitchell's definition of machine learning, and briefly mentioned machine learning applications and illustrated the term fake news using examples like Pope Francis backing Trump. The mean age of participants was 21.4 years, with a standard deviation of 3.9. 37 participants identified as male, 5 as female, 2 chose not to disclose their gender, and 2 identified as a non-binary gender. This means we controlled for age, educational background, and socioeconomic background, but our sample has a strong gender bias that we reflect on in the paper. We also validated the ratings by comparing them to rankings of the news sources by 9 media researchers. The task in the first phase was to provide trust ratings for news stories from different sources. Each of the 82 participants rated 20 news stories from a weighted random sample consisting of 8 quality media news stories, 4 tabloid news stories, and 8 fake news stories. Participants were asked, generally speaking, would you say that this news story can be trusted or that you can't be too careful? Please tell me on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means you can't be too careful and 10 means that this news story can be trusted. Participants also rated their trust in the output of a news curation system. The goal was to understand how fake news changed the trust ratings. The output of the ML system always consisted of 5 unseen news stories selected based on their median trust ratings from phase 1. So these were ratings by the participants. We refer to the trustworthiness of a news story as low if the trust rating is between 0 and 3, medium if the rating is between 4 and 6, and high if it's between 7 and 10. We combine 5 news stories in random order with different levels of trustworthiness. The ML output A medium consists of 5 news stories with a median trust rating between 4 and 6. The ML output B medium 1 low consists of ML output with 4 news stories with ratings between 4 and 6 and 1 with a rating between 0 and 3, as shown in the figure. The condition C medium 1 low 1 high consists of 3 medium news stories, 1 with a low trust rating and 1 with a high trust rating between 7 and 10. The condition D low is the condition where all ML output has a trust rating between 0 and 3. Participants rated the news recommendations on the same 11-point rating scale as the individual news items, where 0 was defined as you can't be too careful and 10 as this collection of news stories can be trusted. More than half of the trust ratings are rated as low. 28.2% are medium. 18.3% are rated as high. As said, we validated trust ratings of the news items by comparing them to a ranking of the news sources by 9 media researchers, 3 male, 6 female. Participants distinguished quality media, the sources A to F, from tabloid media and fake news blogs, the sources G to M. The most trustworthy news source is a conservative newspaper of record with a median trust rating of 6. The least trustworthy news source is a fake news blog with a median trust rating of 1. Like our participants, the experts did not distinguish tabloid media from fake news blogs. This validates the ratings through a sample different in expertise, age, and gender. The first research question was, can users provide trust ratings for news recommendations of a machine learning system? The results show that participants can differentiate between such ML recommendations. Participants' ratings correspond to the news items that make up the recommendations. The median ratings of recommendations are 5 for medium, 4.5 for medium 1 low, 3 for medium 1 low 1 high, and 3 for low. The second research question was, do users distinguish trustworthy ML recommendations from untrustworthy ML recommendations? And the Mann-Whitney-U test shows that participants reliably distinguish between medium and low recommendations. The histogram of the medium recommendations resembles a normal distribution. 5 is the most frequently given trust rating, followed by 8 and 2. The histogram of low is skewed towards negative rating. Here, 1 and 3 are the most frequent trust ratings. Nevertheless, a large number of participants still gave a rating of 6 or higher for low recommendations. A large fraction also gave medium recommendations a rating lower than 5. The most important research question, however, was whether users distinguish trustworthy ML recommendations from recommendations that include 1 fake news stories in their ratings. Ratings for medium 1 low are significantly different from low recommendations. However, the difference between medium and for medium 1 low is not statistically significant. This means that the crucial fake news case, where a recommendation consists of 4 trustworthy news stories and 1 fake news story, is not distinguished in a statistically significant way. The histograms are very similar. Both resemble a normal distribution and both have strong peaks at 5, the neutral position of the 11-point rating scale. Participants with a technical background can provide plausible trust ratings for individual news items as well as for groups of news items. We found trust ratings for news items correspond to expert opinion. However, neither experts nor participants clearly distinguish between fake news and tabloid media. We found that the crucial fake news case was not distinguished. And this is highly problematic considering the nature of fake news. Following Laser et al.'s definition of fake news as fabricated information that mimics news media content in form, but not in organizational process or intent, fake news are more likely to emulate tabloid media in form and content than quality media. This is noteworthy since the first phase of our study showed that users are able to identify individual fake news stories. When providing trust ratings for groups of news items in the second phase, the presence of fake news did not affect the trust ratings of the output as a whole. The simplest explanation for this would be that the task is too hard for users. Identifying a lowly trusted news story in the recommendations of a machine learning-based curation system may overstrain users. A contraindication against this explanation is that trustworthy and untrustworthy recommendations can be distinguished from other news recommendations like the medium, one low, one high recommend. While prior research by Zindule et al. Suggests users distrust even reliable aids after they make mistakes, an untrustworthy fake news story did not lead to a very low trust rating for the news recommendation as a whole. And therefore, our findings could be a first indication that untrustworthy news stories benefit from appearing in a trustworthy context. For online hotel rating platforms, Eslami et al. Found that users can detect algorithmic bias during their regular usage of a service and that this bias affects trust in the platform. The question, therefore, is why participants did not react to the fake news stories in our study in a similar way. Let's talk about the limitations of our study. We conducted the experiment in a German vocational school with an IT focus, which led to a strong male bias. We counteracted this bias by validating the trust ratings of news stories with 9 media research experts, a heterogeneous group that is different in age, gender, 3 male, 6 female, and background. Our setting was artificial and interactions with the post were limited. Another limitation is that the participants had a background in IT, but even if the technical background of the participants would have helped them with the task, they were not able to provide nuanced ratings that accounted for untrustworthy news items, which further supports our arguments. In conclusion, we found that participants can give nuanced trust ratings for news items which correspond to expert opinion, but participants are not able to reliably spot outliers like fake news stories. This means that the crucial fake news case, where an individual fake news story appears among trustworthy news stories, is not distinguished from trustworthy ML recommendations. Thank you very much for your attention. Dewey.